You must love podcasts if you're listening to this. Do you want to start your own one or you already have one? Then follow Smarter Podcasting to get expert advice from me, Neil Mackay, the podcast guy. Since 2019, we've worked with over 40 podcasters, produced over 700 episodes, and helped many podcasts get to the top of the Apple Podcast charts. And right now, I'm offering you a professional edit for just $27. Click the link in the show notes. Welcome to another episode of Smarter Podcasting with me, Neil Mackay, the podcast guy. There's a massive confusion about people calling YouTube videos podcasts.
I want to give people like travel tips and vicarious experiences, provide value for people that want to know what it's like to be an expat. I want to have my podcast in a controlled environment now, kind of like, everybody else does. Not too many people do outdoor podcasts. I need to clean up all that extra junk on my podcast notes.
I've been podcasting since 2019. I started with a show called A Vietnam Podcast, which is now in the top 10% of podcasts worldwide. And I now work with over 20 different podcasters across the world to help them build their audience and connect with their community. Now, in this episode, I'm talking to a good friend of mine, Damien Cole, the host of the XLT, the Expat Locals and Travelers podcast. He's originally from San Francisco, California. He's a writer, director, actor, comedian, and podcaster. And in this episode, we're going to do the first ever Smarter Podcasting podcast audit. So Damien has sent me one of his podcasts to audit. I've gone through it. Now, my expertise, I like to think, is in podcast audio and podcast quality. I'm not here to tell you how to make your first $1 million. I'm not here to tell you how to get 1 million followers, but I can help you create a podcast that is of high quality content. And that is the number one rule in podcasting, and the rest comes after that. So Damien, thank you for joining me today, and thank you for letting me listen to your podcast.
Oh, thank you, Neil. Thank you for having me. I'm really looking forward to the tips you give me.
Well, tell me about your podcast.
Well, yeah, I started a few years ago during COVID, and then I was doing in-studio interviews with locals and expats and travelers. And then COVID hit, so I started doing online with people around the world that I knew in different cities. And now it's kind of a outside kind of thing, because I like to be on the local streets or in a local coffee shop and set up my camera with a mic, and I get like the feeling of outside, and it's raining and someone's making coffee. I do a lot, and eventually I'll figure out my favorite place to do it. But yeah,
I like the natural vibe of
we're in a coffee shop.
And an orange juice.
Dogs barking,
So the listeners who know me and who read my blog and know anything about me, and you and I have been through this before, there's a massive confusion about people calling YouTube videos podcasts. And when you started, or when we first knew each other, you were and are predominantly creating YouTube videos. You're not creating a podcast. Now, I encouraged you to then take the audio from that, put it on Spotify, put it on Apple Podcasts, and then it becomes podcast as well. And that's the greatest thing about content creation. You've got to try and use one piece of content and then use it in as many different ways as possible. So you can do both. But for me, I'm pretty set in my ways that if it's a video only, it's not a podcast. So you sent me the audio version of your YouTube video. I did look at the video a little bit as well, because I wanted to see some things in there as well. So what are your thoughts on that argument between video, podcasting, YouTube?
Well, yep. If you're a purist into the podcasting world, yes, it has to be audio, right? That's where it started. It started on iPods. And so I agree with you. Yeah, I didn't really think of that when I first started. I was just like, I like making movies. I like making videos. I like filming. So I was like, bam, let me get my camera. Let me record it. Let me buy a nice webcam. And then I was like, you're right. I should. So you did inspire me to put it on Spotify and a bunch of, I don't even know how many it's on. I keep doing video because I love video, so I'm gonna do both.
Well, yeah, you are a filmmaker by trade, so it makes perfect sense. And when I'm working with people, I do encourage people to make a video because it creates great content, especially for the short forms and the reels. And then you can take that audio, but we'll go through it a little bit in the audit about how different these formats are, and because they have to be treated really, really differently. Let's get into it then. So before we do get started, I have some questions for you that I'm going to ask everybody at the beginning so we know what we're working with. So first of all, what are you recording with? What equipment do you have? You mentioned a camera. You obviously have a microphone in front of you right now. What are you at? Headphones as well. What are you using?
There's NT USB on it. It's expensive. It's a Rode. I'm using a.
As soon as you see a Rode, you're like, okay, it's a good one, right? Like that's
right. Give me the Rode.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a Rode mic. I got a nice 1080p Logi webcam. Oh, that's cool. I like that. And then just regular, I guess, Canon bargain headphones.
No, but that's some good equipment that you've got there. You got some brand name stuff. You know, you're saying it's, and then I saw your boom arm as well. Did you get that on Lazada? Because it looks pretty similar to mine. I got that, I think, for like $3 or $4 off Lazada. I don't think there's a brand name on it or anything.
Online somewhere.
And wherever you're listening in the world, you can probably find a boom arm pretty cheaply as well. I've seen like the ones that they use for podcasts like Joe Rogan and other podcasts. It's like the Rode boom arm. So nice. It's probably super smooth. And I bet it costs like a lot of money, but having a boom arm is a good start. It's better than holding the microphone in your hand. So the next question is, what do you use to edit? And I guess we'll go with your video since you're taking the audio from video, but what do you use to edit the videos?
Well, I started with Adobe Premiere, and now I'm back on Final Cut Pro. And to make the audio, I was using Zoom, and Zoom would give me a audio file, boom, and I'll just bam use that. I wouldn't edit it. I like to keep it raw, all the coughs and sniffles and everything. I kept it in. I just liked it like that. And yeah.
But my next question is, your podcast is called Expat Locals and Travelers. What is your podcast niche?
I want it to be people that want to travel or they need like an update on a certain city. So like I would interview someone in Thailand. Like this is during COVID. I would be like, "Oh, what's going on in Thailand right now? Is it open? Or Philippines or Africa?" You know, I would be like, "What's the deal?" And then COVID ended, so that was more like I want to give people like travel tips and vicarious experiences through whoever I'm interviewing, so people know where to go, you know, stuff like that. But I've been recently just interviewing a lot of comedians from Saigon because that's like my friend group, and but I want to do more online. Like I want to get people in Bali or wherever they are and say like, "Hey, what's going on over there? How's it going?" But I'm having trouble trying to get people to join my podcast, so that's my only problem.
It is a big challenge with podcasting. People think it's easy to find guests and be a guest as well. And it's a big challenge for many people I work with. They're like, I'm trying to just find people to be on right now. I think it's when you start a podcast, people don't think that that's going to be a challenge.
Huge
The next question is, who do you want your listener to be?
People that are thinking of traveling or people that are thinking of becoming an expat or local people in the countries that I'm featuring. So all three.
Okay. And what makes your podcast different than the other 250,000 podcasts that are published every single week?
I'm funny and handsome. I don't know.
Well, they can't see you handsome on an audio podcast, and we are gonna do this audit based on audio.
What could be different? I try to do long form with free flowing. Like sometimes the people just want to jump right into the one topic, but I want them to talk about their hometown. I want them to talk about why they moved here, what's their experience here. You know, I want to do long form with really in-depth stuff so people could get a really good impression of whatever city they want to move to.
Okay. So what is the goal of your podcast? And that can be anything. That can be, I want to be a millionaire. I want to give up my job, or I want to educate people. Like, it can be anything. What is the main goal of your podcast?
Well, my main goal, yeah, I mean, not my main goal is not to make money, but I mean, that sounds dumb. I want to make money, of course. That would be nice to get sponsors. I would like to have like a travel company sponsor me, or like I don't know, a surfboard company, something like that. Some kind of travel kind of company sponsor me. My main goal is to like provide value for people that want to know what it's like to be an expat. They want to know what it's like in that country. So that was my main goal starting. But then I was like, yeah, money would be nice too, because it does take a lot of time to edit. I've been kind of on and off doing like one a month lately because I don't have time. If I made money on it, I would definitely do a lot more.
Yeah, we definitely all would. So why should someone listen to your podcast?
My guests are very unique. I've got a lot of people in the entertainment industry. I've got some bands. I've got music people. I've got comedians, actors, rappers, all kinds of just all walks of life. And I think that's cool. Because we talk about comedy, and then we talk about why you live in Vietnam, and then it's well-rounded, I would say.
This last question before we get into the audit. What lessons or value do you want a listener to come away with at the end of each episode?
I want them to be entertained, and the value that I want them to walk away with is, okay, I could do this. I could be an expat. Oh, it's not so bad. Oh, it's doable. There's people out there doing it right now that have lived in overseas for 7-10 years. It's possible. I could do it. I'm going to get out of my country. I'm going to leave my bubble. I'm going to get out of my safe place, and I'm going to go see the world.
Well, so let's get into your podcast then. And I'm going to give you some feedback and some of the answers to your questions there at the end. So first of all, I'm looking at your podcast now. So the first thing I noticed, of course, it's like you shouldn't judge a book by its cover, but like, let's be honest, I'd choose a bottle of red wine based on how much I like the label. I have no idea what the cinnamon mean or cranberry, creme brulee flavors or anything like that. So yeah, first of all, the podcast artwork is good. It's simple, it's big, like you need that big letters right in the middle, easy to read, white background, XLT podcast. The only feedback I'd give on that is if you came across that logo, I know you can read it, so that makes it quite self-explanatory, like XLT podcast, Expats, Locals and Travelers. That's really good that you've got that extra tag on it, because then that means people can look at it. But just maybe looking at the logo on its own, if they came across that, they might not know what the XLT podcast is. Yeah. But at the same time, you wouldn't want to put Expats, Locals and Travelers on there. So maybe some like imagery or something like that in the background instead of the white. I do like the white, but maybe some sort of imagery that if people looked at it immediately, they'd be like, oh, that's about expats and travelers and locals. So that could help. And just looking, there's only 2 episodes where you've got the individual episode art. So it's one that you had for the 1-year anniversary. And then the other one was with Annie. So I don't know if that's a conscious decision just to put a cute girl on the front, because there's some others that there's me right there. You did put my picture on there, or all these guys. So maybe that's just a good tactic. But I think the individual episode artwork is good because it doesn't have any text on it. And so even on my big screen that I'm looking at right now and looking at Spotify, you would not be able to read anything on there. And then you think about on your phone or on a car dashboard or something like that. So there's not really any point in adding any text to the episode artwork because it's going to be unreadable on most platforms, most devices that you're looking at. So it is good that you've just got pictures because I think it's just catchy and people are going to see it like, oh, that's a cute girl I want to look at. Oh, that's Damien I want to look at. And then the rest of them like, oh, those guys must be really ugly and I don't need it. But no, they are working good. Then I looked at your show note. Oh, sorry. I wanted to share with you about one of my favorite affiliate partners, and that is Fiverr. I've been using Fiverr for years for everything from ordering YouTube thumbnails to keyword research, writing podcast articles, even to Canva designs and thumbnails and more. So whether you're a budding entrepreneur, a podcaster, or anyone in between, Fiverr has got you covered. It really is the go-to platform if you want to find freelancers offering a massive range of services to help you on any project. Maybe you need a stunning new logo or just a short animation, whatever you need, you can find it on Fiverr. What I love the most is how easy Fiverr makes it to connect with talented freelancers from around the world, all at prices that will fit whatever your budget is. Plus, with Fiverr's secure payment system, you can trust that your transactions are safe and secure. No dodgy people you meet on Facebook groups that disappear with your money and never give you what you want. What, that's only happened to me? As an affiliate partner, I will get a small commission if you use the link and at no extra cost to you. As an affiliate partner, I will get a small commission if you click my link and you buy something, all at no extra cost to you. And best of all, you will be directly supporting the making of this podcast that you're listening to for free, but it is not free to make. So why wait? Head over to somewhere that you've probably never been before. It's called the show notes. So whatever app you're listening in, if it's Spotify or Apple Podcasts or anything at all, head to the show notes, click on my special link, and then you can browse thousands of gigs ready to help you with your next project.
Okay, yeah, I agree. I
What
need to
was the
update. I need to update that. Yeah, I forgot. I see. I do it, and then I just forget. I did one. Now
so
I got to
easy.
call all these people, get some pictures of them.
This is the thing that people don't realize how long it takes to make a podcast. Like, I mean, I don't do video much. I do a little bit, but I don't on my main focus. But even just audio for a 1 hour or just for one episode, it can take about 8 hours of work. I've calculated it before because somebody asked me and I was like, that's a good question. I don't know. So I sat and wrote down like contacting the guest, booking the guest. The guest shows up obviously before you do the podcast, or whether it's online or in person, you're probably going to chat to them before the moment you press record. You might chat afterward. Then you got to do the artwork. Then you got to do the show notes. Then you got to do the promotion. You got to email the person, like you just said, asking for the artwork, waiting for it to come back. There's just so much that goes into that one episode. And I think that's the biggest reason why we have Podseed, where people start a podcast and then within 10 episodes it's disappeared because I was like, oh my God, this is so much work. So kudos to you and me for keeping it going, because it is a lot of work and you don't make money off of it. Very few people make money back off of it. But looking at it, this is just on Spotify. I mean, I didn't look at Apple Podcasts, but it would be the same. I looked at your show note. Yeah, the show notes are good. There was no, or was it just on the episode? All right, yeah. So when you look at the show note, they're good. They are short. You've got one link though that says support this podcast. So I guess that's good. That's on Spotify for podcasters. But it just kind of link. Oh, it does have a link. Do you get any support from this? Have you had anyone say?
I've yet to receive any.
Do you promote it on the podcast? Do you ask people to do it?
To like donate money to me? No, I don't.
Yeah, so it's a tough thing to do. But yeah, I would definitely, if you're going to put the link here, you should definitely have like a shout out on the podcast at the end or at the beginning or both or in the middle as well.
Okay.
Saying that, but it's good. It just shows it short to the point. You don't really need too much because people don't really. I honestly think that people almost never read this. You read or you hear about a lot of podcast experts like really go into detail about the show notes, but have you ever read them on any podcast?
Not really. I mean, I if it's someone I don't know, but then if it's someone I don't know, I usually don't listen to it.
You probably judge it on the artwork, right? More than the reading it, right?
Yeah. I'll click on. If I'm looking for a travel podcast, I see like a globe. I'm like, okay, that's a travel podcast. Click. I like the person's voice. Okay, cool.
There you go.
You know.
That's a good point. No, that's how a lot of this thing new podcast, right?
Yeah. What do you think? It's a good idea just for like the heading is the person's name that I'm interviewing, or some people put like the description of the content right there. I just put the person's name.
So for most
I
of
don't
the
know if
people,
that
they
helps.
just see like one line. Unless it's a celebrity, like the name
Right.
is not really like useful. So I would have the first line of your show note should be, what is the listener going to learn from it, or what value or what question are you going to answer in this episode? So when somebody's scrolling for a podcast, like you said, they're looking for a podcast about traveling, they're going to see it like, oh, that says, what's the best things to do in Saigon? What's the best
Yep.
things to do in Chicago? Whatever. They're going to like, in my mind, would make them click on it more. But yeah, show notes is good, simple. I saw though on the episode show notes, which you can see here, there's a bit of a formatting issue. Like there's 3-4 lines between each paragraph. So you may want to go back into Spotify for podcasters, which I think you're using, and just makes it look a bit untidy. And then these links, you can't actually click them. But I don't know. I haven't tested it on other platforms. You can't click it on Spotify. I'm not sure if that's just Spotify thing, but none of these links work.
Yeah, I need to erase all those
So I'd advise going back into that.
irrelevant.
Yeah, well,
Totally
yeah, if they're not
irrelevant.
relevant, then that's a thing. Again,
I'm like, this is
all
the
con-
movie I made. Click. It has nothing to do with my podcast. I need to get in there and clean it up. Or
and I think the biggest piece
hire
of advice
someone.
really, and well, hire somebody, is just have one call to action and then have that matched in the audio or in the content. So for you, if you want your one call to action to be, help me donate, join my Patreon, or look at my movies, that's what the one thing should be. And then you have one link. Because like we just said, not many people look at the show notes anyway. But if
Yeah.
you direct them to there for a reason, and then they find that reason and they click on it, for me, that would make it a much more smoother process. So let's go to the episode. So I've already loaded it into Descript, and and anyone who listens knows that I only use Descript for editing. I've been using it for years now, and it's for any podcaster, it's just a dream with what they can do. So let's have a listen to the beginning of your podcast.
All right, let's keep going.
Hi, everybody. XLT
Yeah.
podcast. This episode 21. I have Annie here, the president of Toastmasters, my Toastmasters club I'm in. She's the president. That's pretty cool. For now.
Yes.
What does that mean?
Every year we have an election, and I cannot be president for more than 1 year.
Seriously?
Yeah.
All right, so I'll give you my initial feedback from the beginning of. First of all, I love the music. So I know we talked before this interview, and you said you're going to drop the music. I would just completely advise against that. Like the music is awesome.
Really?
You have a catchy
Okay.
loop. Like I found myself humming it afterwards, so that's great. As somebody who works on a lot of podcasts, it's one of the best things. All the podcast music is catchy that I work on, and I find myself afterwards just like humming it in my head after I've just edited a podcast. And my wife will be like, "Oh, is that Taylor Swift you're singing?" I'm like, "No, it's the intro to Mindset, Mood and Movement, 'cause it's stuck in my head." And I definitely keep the music in there. It's good. If you could have held there. So first of all, it lasts about 10 seconds, which in my opinion is a good amount of time. I think too long and you could bore or lose the listener. Too short, I think, is okay as well. But I think that 10 seconds is pretty perfect in my mind. I don't know. I've got no data to back up how long your podcast intro should be, but to listen to it, I think the music for 10 seconds is good. In terms of keeping it, I just strongly advise about it. It's standard to have music because it really sets the tone for your show. It's part of your brand. It's why every podcast, TV, and radio show has their own branded music. And it just makes it more professional. If I came across a podcast and I pressed play and I went straight into the content, I think I'd be pretty confused as well.
Okay. Because someone else told me, they said just jump right into it. Or like make it like 3 seconds. Yeah, I liked my music too. So I was getting a different advice from a different person, and they told me to cut the music out. I was like, okay. So I tried it. I'm still playing with a lot of stuff. I'm only on episode 32 or something.
I think that advice you might have been given was from a YouTuber. And if you are thinking in terms, so it's a different platform, right? So if you're thinking in terms of YouTube, then yeah, you probably wouldn't start with 10 seconds of music and a logo. But even on YouTube, go and look at any YouTube video of a big channel. They do start with like a short, sharp intro. They'll have some music or some sound effect, but that's different. That's YouTube. So for YouTube, yeah, probably wouldn't start with the music. I'm going to talk about podcasting. So for podcasting, you absolutely need the intro music and then an intro. And then you could also hear when I just played that clip there, you can hear you kind of, and then we already know you said you don't really like to edit. You like to keep it raw. And I'm going to go through why I just completely advise against doing that, especially for a podcast, even actually for YouTube as well. I don't know much about YouTube, but there's a lot of editing that you need to start doing. And first of all, that one, I think you can kind of hear your mumble say, okay, let's get started. Like, it's you laugh. Why are you laughing at it?
I like that part.
I mean,
real.
to me, it's kind of, okay, it's real, but it's like unprofessional, and you want people to be, I think now we live in an age where there's so much content that you need to stand out. Like 10, 15 years ago, you could probably just get a microphone and be raw and real, and you'd maybe build up an audience. But like now there's so much content out there, and everything is made to such high standard. It's just expected now. It's like this, my webcam right now is rubbish, like 720p. I know I should have a 4K webcam right now. Any YouTube videos like now it's 4K, all short form content is now in high definition. It's got studio quality sound. That I think you need to work on things like that. And then if you actually could go back and hear that, the music is just way too loud. Like you can't hear what you're saying at all once the music starts. And then the music just like abruptly stops, which again comes to editing where you can fade it out, turn the music down. So that I think your music is good. And I think it should continue in the background when you're talking over it, but the music is way lower, then it kind of fades out.
Okay. Good point. You're right. Yeah, I like the music. My friend made that beat for me.
So then getting into the episode, and I mean, I think you know this already. This is no secret, but your audio quality is just really bad.
Right. That's another reason. There's so many reasons to do it.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Hungary, Budapest. And
Not Budapest.
Budapest. I didn't live in a district where we had a lot of Asians.
I mean, it immediately sounds like you're in a cafe. You can hear beeping horns in the background from a car. You can hear people talking. And then after 11 minutes, you hear somebody like grinding the coffee beans. And again, at 15 minutes where you can't even hear what you're saying. And so, like, if I'm totally honest, if I turned on this podcast, I would turn it off right away. The audio quality is, to me, more important than the quality of the content. It doesn't matter how good your content might be. Like I said, you're competing now against so much content out there. So low standard quality, low standard production just doesn't cut it anymore. And podcasts, the audio podcasts, even video podcasts, they just have such a low barrier to entry. Like I know that you can just get a microphone, you can buy a camera, you can just use your camera on your phone, and you can just start right away. But that doesn't mean that you can have low standards, because podcasting now is professional medium. Like the podcasts that are the biggest podcasts in the world are mostly produced by professional companies. So if you want to get any sort of traction in there, no matter your budget, you really need to have professional standards. And to me, that's mostly to respect your listeners and the time that you want them to give you, because you're asking somebody to give up an hour of their day to spend it with you and listen to what you have to say. And if you're not going to give them that respect, why should they bother? I'll just go watch something else or go do something else.
Yeah. Well, you should see my video with Jackie. Yeah, it's horrible. It's dark. There's people walking into the room saying hi to us, like, "Hey, how you doing? What's up, man? Okay, I'm doing a podcast." Yeah. I think I'm gonna get a dedicated room, and I'll set up this mic, and I have another mic. I'll have two mics connected to a digital recorder, I guess you call them. And I'll do it more professional. I like doing it outside just because it's fun to like capture the essence of Saigon or something like that. But you know what? I should have a setup. I should have a setup. My two cameras, right? Two cameras so I could cut back and forth. And the outside, I should just make my YouTube videos. If I'm going to make a YouTube video with somebody, just make a YouTube video with them. If I'm going to do a podcast with them, bring them indoors, set it up, have this microphone here. I should do, you're right. It can't be, you can't have both, I guess. You can't have both. You gotta choose one or the other.
If you really want to do it outside, do you watch the Best Ever Food Review Show?
Yeah.
So it's set here in Saigon, but it's one of the biggest YouTube channels like in the world. I think it's got like 10 million subscribers. And they film outside. Now their budget is obviously massive. They have amazing equipment. I think if you're really focused on going outside, like you're just gonna have to get better microphones, like better cameras. So maybe weigh up whether it's worth doing it at all. Like, because I'm all about getting things done on the budget I have. And so if it's out of my budget, I won't do it because like right now, what you're producing is not not good enough standard. And unless you're gonna I read about it's like the great YouTube arms race where like people are just investing so much money in YouTube equipment. I don't know if you listen or watch the Diary of a CEO. He's already like a billionaire, millionaire.
Love that.
When he started his
show.
Great, right? Well, you know why it's so good? When he started, he said to his producer, I want you to buy me the best equipment and let me know how much it is. And he went away and he came back. And I maybe get the numbers wrong, but he was like, okay, it's going to cost about $10,000. We're going to do this, that. And he's like, make it more. And it ended up costing him like $40,000 to set up the studio. They got like a moving camera on like wheels and stuff. I mean, you're a movie maker, you know what kind of equipment is out there. He obviously had the money already. So he could be like, let's go spend. But that's the kind of money that you can spend. And so, yeah, I think you have to do for people like us who are just indie podcasters trying to get by. You got to do the best you can with what you have or the budget you have. And so if you all want to go outside, maybe just don't. Or get lavalier mics. You can get cheap lavalier mics for like $10, $20 that are going to clip to the lapel on your shirt. That's going to pick up better audio quality. So you can still have that outdoor feel. But like right now, when you listen to yours, I haven't even watched or listened to the Jackie new one, but it sounds pretty.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, you can't really. I mean, so I have a YouTube channel that I make videos with, and then I have my podcast YouTube channel. So yeah, I think if I have someone live, I'll bring them inside, set it up. You know, I already have 2 decent mics. I got the arm. I can buy another arm. I got 2 cameras. You know, I guess maybe I could just plug these mics into my computer.
If they're both USB, you can. If you got 2 USB ports, you don't even need an audio interface. You already got great equipment. You could produce a great quality sounding podcast.
Got pretty good equipment.
Yeah.
This is like a $300 mic or something.
Yeah.
Forget if I
so
spent
you're doing yourself such a disservice then with like having such a poor quality content, because I know that you can produce so much better than that. And then I think it's just focusing on one thing or the best thing that you can do and not trying to do too much at once.
Yeah, I need to revamp. I need to clean up all that extra junk on my podcast notes. I need to get a nice, fresh logo of like a globe.
So that was mostly the audio quality, and you know already, like that can just be improved. It can be easily done. Like it's not even like you have to start and go buy all this like hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment. You already have it. So I think it's just focusing on what you want to do, focus on one medium and then do that one and then do it well. If you want to do podcasting later, do that.
I want to have my podcast in a controlled environment now, kind of like, you know, everybody else does. Not too many people do outdoor podcasts.
That's my feedback on the audio quality. A couple other notes I typed down for the podcast. So I would keep your music, have about 10 seconds. Then I advise everybody edit on the script. It's so easy to do. Then you bring the music down. You add something called ducking and that will automatically bring the music levels down below the intro. Then what you need to do then is add an introduction to the podcast, which I have a template that I can share with you. What you want to do is introduce the podcast. And if you go back and listen to the beginning of this podcast, this is exactly what I did. I introduced the podcast, what value it gives the listeners. I introduced myself, why I'm the person to guide the listener and give that value. Then I introduced the topic for this episode and what specific value the listener is going to gain from it. I introduced you with 1, 2, 3, 4 things. I was like, he's a writer, director, producer. My guest is Damien Cole. Then we get into it. So I would follow that template for every episode at the beginning of an audio podcast. A couple of other things like housekeeping things. you did something that everybody does, and I do it as well, and it can be edited out, but it's easier if you just don't do it, is saying yeah in the background while the guest is speaking. And I remember the first time I did it, and then I went to edit it, all I could hear was my voice in the background, because audio, again, there's no video, you're just hearing the voices. And if you have somebody in the background going, yeah, 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 so distracting to the listeners. So it's something I actually tell my guests not to do as well. I'm like, okay, so everybody does this, please don't do it. Smile and nod and engage. But I'm also talking to myself as well, so reminding myself that not to do that as well. And mostly that episode that I listened to, obviously the audio quality, we've talked about that. The blender going off at 15 minutes, and then at 20 minutes, I was like, I can't listen anymore. This massively loud coffee, I think not blender, what do you call it? Coffee grinder going up. Yeah. But even then, it just needs more editing and cleaning up. And I know you want to keep it raw, but honestly, I just think you need to just up your game and edit it. So just by cutting out the gaps, so you can see here, I'm going to share the video on the script. There's an automatic function. You click on it. It literally takes 1 second. You can cut out every single gap in the episodes, and you can set the time. So I set it to 1 second. So any gap more than 1 second, cut it down to just 1 second, and it does that. Then you can cut out all the filler words as well, and you can choose which ones you want to cut out. I generally don't cut out the repeated words, because sometimes we repeat words for a reason or for a point. So I don't cut those ones out. You cut everything out. If so, you know what I mean? All of these words, all of these. When I did that to your episode, I removed the gaps longer than a second. I removed all the filler words. I automatically cut out 6 minutes of essentially useless audio that gives no value to the listener at all. So just by doing something as simple as that, cutting out the silences, cutting all the filler words, you suddenly have a much more sharper, polished episode. And then the other thing I did as well was I turned on something by the script called Studio Sound. So Studio Sound will take almost any audio and make it sound like you're in the studio. So I clicked that button. It is literally just a button. And at 100%, because you had that single mic between you, it made some of the audio, some of the speaking a bit choppy, and it makes it unnatural. So at 100%, and this happens often, unless you have two microphones like we do, like right in front of you, if you have a condenser microphone in between you and it's picking up all this background noise.
So what is, like, everybody nominated you, or just like...
I think one person brought it up.
So what is, like, everybody nominated you, or just like...
I think one person brought it up.
It's not like magic. It can't suddenly make two people talking into a condenser microphone sound like they're in the studio. It will make me and you sound like we're in a studio because we're already using good microphones. But then I turned it down to just 90%, and the sound quality was suddenly incredible. And you could still hear a little bit of the background. And so those are just 3 quick and easy steps. Remove the filler words, cut the gaps, turn on the studio sound, and immediately, like, that takes 0 time. You have a little bit of investment in Descript, but the minimum plan is like $12 a month. I didn't get Descript for the longest time, so I didn't want to spend any money. I was using GarageBand because it's free on my Mac. And then eventually I gave in, I spent a little bit of money, started on Descript, and I literally got so much time back, and the quality of the podcast just got so much better. And then now everybody I work with across the world, I use Descript, they use Descript. Like, it's just the best podcasting tool. So in terms of editing, that would be probably my biggest recommendation, is just get Descript. It will change the way you podcast.
And that's only audio, Descript, or doesn't do video? Okay.
It does do video now as well. So it's done video now for about a year. So this
it does.
Now the platform, well, people are going to be watching this YouTube video, and it's been edited in Descript. So right now we're recording in a program called Squadcast, which Descript bought about a month ago. So now I have free access to Squadcast. So before that, it used to be like a paid platform like Riverside. Now, because I'm on the creator plan with Descript, which is $30 a month because I need the hours, you get 30 hours a month with the creator plan. And sometimes I go over that because I'm working with so many podcasts. But with the creator plan, you get free access to Squadcast. So we're using this high quality online platform for free. And then once we have finished this and I press stop recall, I press one more button and it will automatically import into Descript. So I want to go back to the beginning, some of the questions that I asked you. So we talked about what you record with, you've got amazing equipment, you're going to look at getting the script. One thing I asked you was, what's your podcast niche? And I think you need to make the niche even nichier. The nichier, the better. So it's Expat Locals and Travelers. Those are like three completely different groups of people. An expat, somebody that obviously lives overseas for a long time. A local is somebody that lives in the place. And a traveler is someone that's going for just a short time. Those are three completely different groups of people. And everyone asked as well, like, who do you want to listen to your podcast? It's kind of like, well, I want an expat and a local and a traveler. Like, they're just so different. And if you think of any successful podcast, they have a really, really specific niche. So that if you are an expat and you want to learn about expat life, you're going to go to that. If you're a local, you're going to do that. Like, so I would just choose one thing and do that really, really well. I asked you what makes the difference with your podcast, and you said something which I think is completely true, and it took me so long, and I still battle with it. You kind of mentioned yourself, and you're like, I'm funny. I think like lean into that. For the longest time, I tried to think like what made my podcast different. Like people would say, what's your USP, which is your unique selling point? And I couldn't, just from the feedback I got from listeners who would tell me they like listening to me, they like my style or whatever. Eventually I was kind of like, I think it's me. Like I'm the difference, which is really hard to say, like unless you're a complete egocentric maniac, which I don't think many people are. It took me ages to figure out, like, I think you are. I think it took me ages to figure out, like, I think that's what makes it different. So if you do think that that's what makes your podcast different, then lean into that. And you'll have seen my branding change over the last year, like my face and I was on everything. And that took a massive leap and a step to do that. I put my personal brand first, like I changed all the language for the first years and years. Everything I used, I said we, even though it was only me. Oh, that was because I wanted to make it seem like a bigger team. And people were like, how many people have you got in your team? Like, it's amazing. And I was like, oh, it's just me, which was cool. But then as I realized, like, people want to support you and people like you, I was like, I need to lean into this. So now I've changed all the language. Anything you read on my website or social media, like I use I believe this, I do this, I like, so I'm going to change that. So that's just a way of like leaning into that. And then talked about the goal of your podcast. And I think, we all want to make money from it. Like let's not lie. I think it's difficult if that's your number one goal. And I think your number one goal should be to produce a high quality podcast, and then money will come from that. You're probably going to be getting sponsors, but like right now, if you send your podcast to any sponsor and ask for money, like, what do you think? They're just shaking your head. What do you think they would say when they listen to your podcast?
I would say, the fuck? Excuse my language. They turn on the light. Like, what are you doing in a coffee shop? You couldn't even find a spot to do that. Like, yeah, they would. No. I gotta, like I said, I gotta find my controlled environment.
Yeah,
and make it officially somewhere. I could get a nice background. I could get some backdrop. And I think, you know what? I do need to niche it up a little more. What do you think? Because I'm an expat. I guess I can't really call myself a traveler at the moment. What
you're
do
an
you think
expat and you want to share. If you're an expat and you want to share your expertise, then I would keep it to expats, because there's a lot of people around the world that want to know about life overseas. It's such a broad topic. But then make your ideal listener is other expat. Like that's who you want to market to. That's your ideal listener, is somebody who's already an expat thinking of becoming one. And tying into your looking for sponsors again, it comes back to the number one rule is just having high quality production, and then sponsorship can come after that. And then my last question is, what lessons or values do you want your listener to come away with at the end of each episode? So I would go back, look at your niche. Who do you want to target? What listener do you want? What do you want to teach them? What value do you want them to come away with? And once you get, and then with the quality of production, once you put all of that in place, then you can think about sponsorship.
Okay, man, that's great. Because I was looking at my expat traveler logo. It's like huge. It's huge. It doesn't even like fit onto the little. It's just like dot dot dot. I think I should just do expats and keep it short and sweet. And then we could talk about expat stuff. Like today, I could talk about how I'm getting my my TRC, and I had to run around to 17 different government buildings, and I could just
So
vent on stuff like that, and people that I know could talk to me about that. Yeah, and I could do overseas stuff too. I could find expats living in Spain or something and interview them. And that could be my value. That could be that because yeah, I
I'm going to
agree.
bring you back
Okay,
a little bit, Neil. I'm going to bring you back a
okay,
little bit. I
dial
think
me
you need to
down,
be
dial me down.
even, you need to niche, right? What you
Yeah.
said there initially was perfect. I think you need to do expats in Saigon and share your experience and share the experience of other expats in Saigon, because that right away now you know who your target market is. It's either people who want to move to Saigon, like there's a lot of people come and go every year, or it's people that already live here. And what you just said there about like getting your TRC, so valuable. Like so many people are like, such a big frustration for anyone who lives in Saigon or anyone who's an expat. But as soon as you be like, I want to go interview someone in Spain, you've suddenly, or I want to interview someone in Germany, you've suddenly broadened it so much. So now you're talking about trying to like reach people worldwide, which can be done, but it's way more difficult to be like, I want to reach expats in Saigon. And then look, there's no reason that in the future, if that takes off, then you can have expats in Seville, expats in Rome. Like you start to build out from there and it becomes a bigger brand. I think to start off with that is just, you're not going to get loyal listeners, because you may have somebody who comes and listens to the one in Saigon because they want to know how to get a TRC. But if the next one's about someone in Spain, that person's like, okay, well, I don't need to listen to this anymore. I'm done.
Okay. Advice. Thank you. Okay. I'll mull that over, because I already have episodes with people in different countries. I want to, maybe I could like concentrate mostly on Saigon and have every now and then have like this person.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, it's like special
Like a bonus episode or
What
something
do you think
like
I
that.
should call it? Expats in Saigon? Because I want to
Well,
change
well,
the name.
I mean, the main advice is keep it 3 words, keep it short and simple, make it really obvious what it is. You've already got like Facebook groups called Expats in Saigon. They don't own that name, but it just means if anyone was to search like Expats in Saigon or Google Expats in Saigon, there's a higher chance that your podcast will come up. I think just keep it simple, keep it to exactly what it says. Yeah.
Saigon expat. Sexpat. No, Saigon expat. Okay. Sexpat. Maybe. No, that's not good. Expats in Saigon. Okay. Maybe we don't need an abbreviation. We'll just keep
That's something you do.
Yeah. That would be weird. Okay. Saigon expat. Saigon. No. Expat in Saigon. Okay. Okay.
I'll let you know.
Expat in Saigon. That sounds good.
It's great, and it's just so you know exactly what it is, right?
Wow, that is great.
Spot.
Okay, yeah, because I've been wanting to change the name and the logo and niche it up. So now I know. Okay, good advice.
Any final questions for me?
The guru, Neil, the guru, the freaking podcast guru, man. Holy shit, I'm lucky to get on this show.
Thank you very much for volunteering and being the first person. So if you are listening,
wow, I'm the first one. Damn,
this podcast audit. So thank you very much for being the first guest, the first podcast audit. Thank you very much to Adam Shively from the Podcasting Business School. So I follow a lot of what he does and I follow a lot of his advice, and it's his advice that I've used to start doing these podcast auditing. So I'm excited for where this is going to go. If you do want to use the script as your editing software, then please go to the note and give it a click there, and you'll be helping me. I'll get a small commission. Won't cost you anything. The script has changed my podcasting life. Like it's that good. If you have any questions about it, get in touch with me and just let me know. And do the usual stuff. Follow, subscribe, turn on the notifications. I think it's so cheesy and cliche to say that, and I still don't know if it even works. Does anyone even do it? When you hear somebody say it, everybody tells you to do it. But I'm going to tell you as well. So Damien, thank you very much for joining me on Smarter Podcasting, and thank you to you, the listener, all listening.
Thanks for having me, Neil. Anytime, man.
Cheers.
Hi, my name is Sal Jeffries. I run the Mindset, Mood and Movement podcasts. I've been working with Neil at 7 Million Bikes for the whole of this year, literally from the start of my podcast to date. And I want to say a couple of things. So when we record the podcast, sometimes there are things that I need tweaking. There could be edits or clips. It's really simple. I give those instructions to Neil, he gets it sorted. There's sometimes a sound level differences between the guest mic and mine. Again, that's all sorted so the outcome is a really balanced sound. And also if there are issues with voice, little kind of sound interruptions, all those things that can distract a listener, Neil knows exactly what to do, cleans it up. The end result, highly professional, beautiful sounding podcast without distraction. That's exactly what I want. I know my listeners do. So if you're interested in having that level of podcast and that kind of quality, Neil is a great guy and I highly recommend you speak to him.